Most people know Simple Minds for what came later. The bigger sound and the wider audience, the breakthrough years. But for me, the real story begins earlier, across 3 albums released between 1980 and 1981. Empires and Dance, Sons and Fascination, and Sister Feelings Call. I'm not going back to the first 2 albums here, important as they are. This is where my own journey with the band began, and these are the records that have stayed closest to me over the years, along with New Gold Dream. This is also the point where Simple Minds began to embrace synthesizers much more fully, while still keeping their tension and their sense of movement. These are not just 3 albums. This is the moment where their identity starts to take shape. What stands out about this period is that it feels like a band in motion. Not hesitant and not unsure, but moving with intent. You can hear musicians who have found a direction and are now pushing it forward, testing it, stretching it, and seeing how far it can go. By the time they reach Empires and Dance, something has clearly changed. The music no longer leans on traditional post-punk structures. Instead, it becomes more rhythmic, more repetitive, and much more hypnotic in the way it moves. This is where the European influence becomes essential. The band had been touring across continental Europe, and not just passing through but absorbing everything around them. Different cities, different atmospheres, and a different sense of culture. And crucially, different music. Artists like Krautrock and Neu had already redefined rhythm. Not as something that builds and releases like rock music, but as something continuous, a motoric pulse that keeps moving forward without interruption. That idea of motion without release becomes central to Empires and Dance. The rhythm is not just support, it is the foundation of everything. Derek Forbes' bass lines take a leading role, repeating patterns that feel both melodic and hypnotic. They pull you into the track rather than guiding you through it. Brian McGee's drumming locks everything into place. It is steady, precise, and controlled. It does not draw attention to itself, but it defines the entire structure. Together they create a forward momentum that never lets go. Once you hear it, it becomes impossible to ignore. On top of that foundation, the rest of the band builds something more atmospheric and more immersive. Mick McNeil's synthesizers move into the center of the sound. They are no longer just background elements. They shape the entire space of the music. Sometimes it is a single repeating tone that creates tension. Other times it is layers that add depth and movement. Charlie Burchill's guitar becomes less about traditional playing and more about texture. It blends into the synthesizers so closely that it often feels like part of the same instrument. Jim Kerr's vocal approach fits perfectly into this evolving sound. His lyrics are fragmented and often abstract. They do not tell clear stories. Instead, they create impressions. Images that come and go. Observations that feel like part of a larger journey. And that is exactly how Empires and Dance feels. Not like a set of songs, but like a continuous movement through different environments. Tracks like I Travel capture that feeling directly. The repetition reinforces the sense of motion. You're always moving, but never quite arriving. That sense of dislocation becomes part of the experience. Even the more experimental moments fit into this idea. They do not interrupt the album, they deepen it. They make it feel more like a world than a collection of tracks. There is also a psychological element to this repetition. It does not just create rhythm, it creates pressure. The longer a pattern continues, the more it draws you in, the more it holds you there. You are not just listening to the music, you are inside it. That approach reflects the influence of the German electronic scene, but Simple Minds make it more emotional and more human. It is not cold or detached, it has tension, it has atmosphere, it has weight. And this is what makes Empires and Dance feel like a turning point. Everything begins to lock together. The band sounds unified in a way they had not quite achieved before. Every element serves the same purpose. There is a clear sense of direction, but it still feels open. It still feels like something that could move further. When you move into Sons and Fascination and Sister Feelings Call, that movement continues, but it changes direction. Instead of tightening the sound, the band expands it. These albums come from the same sessions, and you can hear that shared identity immediately. But there is also a sense of overflow, as if the band had more ideas than could fit into a single album. Sons and Fascination feels more structured, but still unconventional. The rhythmic drive remains central, but it is used in more varied ways. Entrance's mission builds gradually through repetition and layering. It does not follow a traditional structure. It evolves over time. Sweat in Bullet introduces a more urgent and fragmented energy. The rhythm pushes forward, but it also shifts and resists stability. Then there is 70 Cities as Love Brings the Fall, a track that feels almost unstable. The sound itself becomes part of the tension. It challenges the listener and creates a sense of unease. And then you have Boys from Brazil, one of the most physically driven tracks of this period. Brian McGee's drumming is relentless. It drives the entire track forward with force. It does not let go. And against that intensity, the lyrics remain ambiguous. That contrast between musical clarity and lyrical uncertainty creates something very powerful. At the same time, Love Song introduces a different kind of energy. It feels more direct and more immediate, still rooted in repetition and atmosphere, but reaching out more clearly. It suggests a direction without fully committing to it. It shows that the band is capable of clarity, but still chooses to remain open. Sister Feelings Call then takes that openness even further. This is the more atmospheric side of the same creative moment. The tracks feel less structured and more fluid. They focus on mood and space rather than form. Theme for Great Cities stands out as a key example. It is not built like a traditional song. It unfolds slowly. It creates an environment, something you step into rather than listen to from a distance. This is where the electronic influence becomes even more pronounced. Not just in sound, but in how the music develops. It becomes about immersion, about repetition, about allowing the listener to exist within the track. And that is why these two albums belong together. One moves towards form, the other towards atmosphere. Together they show a band exploring both directions at once. There is also something very honest about this period. It does not feel like the band is chasing success. It feels instinctive. It feels like they are following ideas rather than trying to shape them into something commercial. At the time, they were criticized for being too European and too detached from their roots. But that is exactly what gives this music its identity. It is shaped by movement, by exposure, by experience. It does not belong to one place. It feels like it belongs to many. For me, that is what makes Empires and Dance, Sons and Fascination, and Sister Feelings Call so important. Not just as albums, but as a continuous moment where Simple Minds became Simple Minds. This is where everything begins to align. The rhythm and the atmosphere and the use of synthesizers all come together into something distinct. It is still evolving and still forming, but it is already unmistakable. And when you move forward from this point, you can hear how those ideas continue to grow. But for me, it always comes back to these three albums. This is where the connection began. This is where the sound first felt like something entirely their own.